Welcome to Serving Your Market as Kings or Queens. If you are looking for an interesting commercial, marketing, and sales podcast that is bold, unfiltered, unconventional, and authentic, you are at the right place. Curious how to play the game better and smarter? We will share how we crack the code to hyper growth for our customers. We will invite amazing people. We will share our experience, the first attempts in learning, cracking the code, and finally the results. And last but not least, we will give you food for thought. Now, let's get started.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the podcast of Serving Your Market like a King or Queen. We are really happy today, and we welcome Simran Kaur, a friend of ours, to our podcast. Simran is a career-loving parent of 2 boys and customer-centric sales leader specializing in new business as well as market expansion. We started working together when she was the strategic business development director at Serious Decisions, truly passionate and helping clients to grow faster and become also more profitable. So currently she's an enterprise account executive at Bynder, supporting clients to manage the life cycle of the digital assets. It's a Dutch-based company. Simran is a great woman. She's curious, ambitious to learn, bringing challenges from different industries together. And most of all, she leads with passion and purpose, I think, in her personal and professional life. And that's something which I think is outstanding and I admire actually in her. So outside of her work, her interests are charity, working with Khalsa Aid and Thrive, with mentoring, cooking, music and dancing. So welcome again, Simran. We are really happy to have you here. And also, hi, Liesbeth.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome, Simran.
No, thank you both, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today and talk to you guys and discuss some topics that are so important to everybody who's in B2B sales, right?
Exactly. But before we delve into the conversation, I would say, shall we raise a glass? And I would like to start with you, Simran. So what are you having today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for sending me a lovely bottle of non-alcoholic champagne. As you guys know, I don't drink. And that meant so much because you actually were people-centric. You reached out to me and you said, hey, look, we normally send a bottle of champagne or something alcoholic, but I'm not sure if you drink. And you really sort of catered to my needs. So I really appreciate that. So, yeah, thank you.
Happy to hear that. Thanks a lot. Right. I'm having today, it's a Castellium. It's an IPA. I think especially probably UK is quite famous around IPAs, but this one is from the Netherlands, from Hazerswoude. I'm not sure if you know that town, Simran. It's a little bit closer to Amsterdam.
Okay. No, I haven't heard of that one, if I'm honest.
No. It's a small one, but I'm going to enjoy it. So what are you having, Liesbeth?
I'm joining Simran with some bubbles, but it's a Spanish one. It's a cava. So cheers to you both, and looking forward to this episode. Cheers.
Exactly. All right. So let's go over to the promise of this podcast, right? So today it will all be about how to stay true to yourself whilst building valuable relationships with your buyers. So Simran will talk a lot about that and discuss her experience and real life examples from that, but also going into what is the role of sales and marketing teams in this. How can they best work together, achieve goals, results, and probably also chase a belief together. So first thing, probably Simran, if I've been looking at your LinkedIn profile, also probably for the audience, and what I think it gives really a good reflection of who you are and what you believe, first of all. So it goes into you being an enterprise sales at Bynder. You're optimistic, a career-loving parent, women rights, humanitarian. So I think that is already in itself that you show that you are more than just one role, right? You fulfill different roles in your life. And what I truly admire about that is that you also balance performance and purpose truly in that. I see that coming through to your post, to your content, the way you build relationships. And that gives you probably an opportunity, and I hope to hear more about that today, obviously, to unlock your potential success as a salesperson. But I could talk probably about this, but I think it would be way more interesting if you could tell us somewhat more about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, for those kind words. That really means a lot. I think it's important for me to have a purpose in life, like anybody else, not just professionally, but personally as well. And I think now more than ever before, those two have become so linked together because we're more passionate about the work we're doing, but it's also become more interconnected with our personal lives, especially more so in the last year, with the pandemic going on. We're working from home, our personal life and our professional life, it's all sort of in one. Everybody, look at us, we're all working from home. I also think it's really important for organizations to allow their people to bring their whole self to the table. So, those times have gone where I remember talking to women who are like in their 60s, and they're telling me that back in the days when they were working, they never talked about their children at work. It wasn't something that was discussed. They never talked about work, right? And that's a shame because that's a massive part of who we are, our personal life. So for me, it's important that I work for a company who can celebrate who I am as a person personally. So, laying sort of a path forward and leading by example for my two boys, and showing them that a life of purpose can be achieved by working hard and by staying true to yourself. So not trying to be somebody you're not. And I think that's something I'm actually really proud of, that I allow myself to just be me when I'm working, when I'm talking to my prospects. I'm not using sort of jargon, corporate jargon, as to say, that doesn't come naturally to me. I'm more than happy just to use simple words, but also interject things that I'm passionate about. We can talk about, hey, for example, what are some of the charities that you support? And we can have a conversation about that.
Yep.
Talking about work, because those things are important to me. And equally, I want to know that about my prospect or my client, because there's more to me and there's more to my prospect or my client than just being in that position, professionally. So who are you as a person? And I think once you sort of unlock that, it allows us to build long-term relationships, not just a one-off relationship where I'm getting to, hopefully getting to contracts. So, I think those two things are really linked. You cannot have the professional Simran without the personal one, and vice versa. And these days, especially, it's become even harder to keep those lives separate. Like I said earlier, we're working from home. And for me, it's even more important, like so many others out there. I'm a single parent of two boys. So for me, I want to do my utter best to show them that, hey, you can be whoever you want to be. If you work hard, if you put your 100% into things, you can achieve whatever you want in life. So I'm just really passionate about these things. And when it comes to humanitarian work, I think it's really important to give back to the community, in small amounts, big amounts, whatever you're able to give. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important to help people where we can, because there's lots of people out there who are in less fortunate situations than we are. And then just touching a little bit about, the women's right sort of part. I grew up in a very traditional Asian Punjabi family. And growing up, I saw the differences, the way the boys and the girls were treated, and the barriers that girls had and boys didn't. So for me, it's all about breaking those social barriers, even if it's, just a little bit, and just pushing my way through those and showing my boys and also girls, who are part of my life, other young girls, that, hey, again, just because you're a girl doesn't mean that you cannot achieve this certain goal. You can do anything that a boy can do, if not better. Sorry, Jeroen.
Exactly.
No, I probably need to be quiet now with two women here in the conversation. But I really like that story, and that shows truly indeed that you, by balancing that probably in a good way, you can really unlock your success, and it's really nice to hear this.
But I really recognize what you're saying, Simran. I remember, and it's really a long time ago, but where well, your professional life and your private life were more disconnected. Well, not disconnected, but you were in a kind of certain role.
Yeah.
And I remember one time when I was applying for a job and I was in the interview, and then I talked about kind of Liesbeth at work and Liesbeth private.
Yeah.
And that was so strange, actually. And that was really a pitfall, because at the end I got the feedback of, why are you talking about two separate things?
Oh.
But then I replied, I said, because that's what you expect from me, because you don't want me to talk about my child, or I don't know if I had a child at that time, but doesn't matter, what is happening in your private life. Yeah. That's why that's why I was playing it up. But it was the biggest lesson for me, that I thought, in my next job roles, I never want to be a kind of different Liesbeth. I want to be me. And that's what I bring, and of course, there are good things and maybe, things you don't like so much about it, but that's me, and that's what I find important. And then I worked for a long time for UNICEF, and that was a perfect place to build it up, because there it was about human, and being human, and having your children, or bring your children to school. It was in these times, it was really kind of progressive, because in more the business world, it wasn't that accepted that you are late because you had to bring your children to school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that was really an eye-opener for me. And then when I started to work in IT, then I thought, I'm never going to change that. That's me, and that comes with me. I have children, I have a family at home, and I have to combine those things. So I totally agree with you.
Yes, and we've come a long way, but I still think there is so much work to do. And, people like you and I, we can make that difference by accepting, like you said, I'm never going to hide who I am again. I'm going to bring my whole self. That then creates a platform for the next person who's going to come into that role to be able to, do that easier. So yeah, kudos to you. Well done.
Yeah, that's nice. And Simran, I wonder, because I think you have worked in a lot of industries. So have you learned in combination of who you are and how you develop yourself? I really see you as a very strong woman. What was the influence of the different industries and the different job roles you had on who you are today?
Yeah, I think industries definitely do shape you, right? So I think most of the time I worked in industries which are very male dominant and still are, right? So there's still a lot of work to do there, and place on the table for other women. I think more than the industries, it's also, again, that personal side, right? That shapes you massively as a person. And thank you that you see me as a strong woman. It's taken a lot for me to come here. It's taken a lot of struggles and heartache and experiences and not being strong to be able to then realize that, hey, no, I cannot let this happen to me. I've got to pick myself up and be strong and deal with this in a different way. And again, breaking barriers and setting examples for myself. But if we specifically talk about work, I would say a company that is really still close to my heart, and that's where Jeroen and I met, where we worked together. Jeroen was, my client, was Serious Decisions. I think that company really shaped me and really made me look at myself in a different way because of the people I was working with. They made me challenge myself. They made me look at myself in a different light. And the success I had here made me so much more confident in myself and actually believe in myself. And the two leaders there, the founders of that company, were people who really believed in you. They were like down in the weeds with you. Like if you needed them on a sales call, although they're the CEO, they will come and join you and they will celebrate your success. They will give you criticism where needed in a very nice way. And I think that experience really, really shaped me that, hey, wow, look how far I've come from the girl that I was growing up in this very traditional Punjabi family, where I was told, oh, girls should not be so loud and you shouldn't laugh so loud because you're a girl and you cannot do this and you have to be settled by this age and, certain professions weren't for you. And here I am achieving all these things and I should be proud of myself. And I think meeting those people, working in that industry and and meeting clients, like Jeroen and lots of other people who I am still in touch with. I've created those long-term relationships with them. And one of my clients actually sent me flowers when I was going through a very tough time about a year and a half ago. So those are the things that have really shaped me, meeting those people, learning from them, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. I think that's a key one. Just show people who you are. Let them see the real you. And that's where you just feel connected with everybody, and you learn something not about them, but more importantly, about you from other people.
I think it's quite unique in kind of, commercial roles, in sales roles, to be that open. But I couldn't agree with you more that at the end, it's all about building relationships, because relationships you take with you.
Totally.
And, if it's just more transactional, getting the deal in, or, it's just for that time.
Yeah.
And this way, there's a real value exchange, and you build it up. It stays with you. It doesn't matter in what way. It doesn't have to stay your customers all the time.
Of course.
But, well, look at how we're sitting here today.
Exactly.
It's so valuable.
Yeah, it's very much connected to, I think, your brand, right? You're the Simran brand now, right? And Bynder is lucky to have you working for them, right? But if you would embark into a next part of your journey, right, whatever, right, in a couple of years, then the Simran brand stays there, right? And I think that's hearing also where you're coming from and then where you're at now is, I really admire that, and thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you. And with Bynder again, this step was so important for me, to be with a company that I can fully believe in, that I feel that, oh my God, I just want to work here. And with Bynder, from the first call I had with the recruiter, I just knew this is where I want to be. And I'm just so pleased to be a part of Bynder. They are exactly what I needed, and what other people need. They provide a platform where I can bring my whole self to work, where I don't have to hide parts of me, and where there is potential for growth for me as well. So,
that's fantastic. I would say we talk a lot about, I think, in our shows around ideal customer profile, but I really hear an ideal employer profile, right?
Totally. Yes, it goes both ways, right?
Exactly.
Because if you have
super nice to hear that.
Employees, then automatically they are gonna want to bring in the ideal customers as well.
Yeah, and it's so nice. This is who you are, and how you add value to, in this case, Bynder. But what you see in the market, I don't know if you recognize that, is that because everything becomes more digital. We live in a digital era. More and more subscription models are adopted. But what you see here happening in the market is that the companies who don't, driving is the wrong word, but don't have the power to build up those relationships, to add extra value to their customers, they don't survive. The thrivers are the ones who really understand conversational engagement, building up the relationships, really staying in contact, personal contact with not only their customers, but with their whole audience. And so it's kind of, I won't say new, but a lot of companies still approach it from more transactional, waiting till it is renewal time and then contacting the customer, shall we renew? And then because, just 3 months ago, I signed a contract with somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not so strange, is it? If you don't contact the customer or you don't build up a relationship along the contract period.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's all about being people-centric. And I think a lot of the companies are still in that sort of old school way of selling. Like you said, they'll contact the customer 3 months before renewal date, or maybe even later. But, with Bynder, what I find is that the value is there from the start when we bring a customer on board. And what I really enjoy is that, you get to know their objectives, you get to know their challenges, and you get to sort of introduce them to the team who is going to take them through the journey from being a prospect and then a client, but then also onboarding them. And like you said, it isn't transactional, especially in a subscription model business, you have to think of the long term, because if you don't, you're constantly going to be filling a bucket that has a big hole in it, where customers are just sort of going out from that hole, and then you're having to put in new customers in to keep things floating, to keep the bucket.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a leaky bucket, right?
Exactly. So that's like catch-22. You're never going to win in that situation. So what you need to do is have a bucket which has no holes in it, or as minimum as possible, and that you're constantly bringing in new customers. And Bynder's retention rate is 107%, and that's due to the exceptional customer support and the customer service we provide from start till finish, and sort of the ongoing relationship of that customer.
But this is a great example, because I think actually now you're describing how is the more traditional sales process maybe that a lot of companies still deploy actually when they are not active in the subscription world, changing actually, right? The moment when you sign up a customer, then the whole delivering incremental value will actually start, right? So you can't just be, like you said, getting the transaction in and then off we go. And as a salesperson, then two years later and 8 months, you will pick up the phone again. And when it's renewal time, it's I think the way you described that, how you would add value before the signatures are being set, but it's just as important to start adding value when the signatures have been set, right? And I think it's becoming almost like continuous process, I would say.
Totally. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think a great example here is an old colleague of ours who is maintaining a relationship, but he never sold to the guy. But he said, but the click is there, not was there, is there. It still is. Yeah. And then this guy was asking, why are we staying in contact? Not because he didn't like it, but more like, you cannot sell anything to me. Yeah. And then, it doesn't matter to me. I like you. And I'm sure that the moment you're going to work for another company and you're able to buy locally, I know you will come to me.
Yeah. And I've been in that situation.
And it's really the long term, but I really understand it.
You have to think of it. And like Jeroen was saying, it's not just about the company you work for, it's building your own brand, right? So I actually remember an example where I was working with a CMO of a software company, and he really loved, what we did as a company, and he wanted to buy, but unfortunately his CEO put a block on the budget for that particular financial year. And then when he joined another company a year later, he came back to us and he was like, look, I'm ready to buy now. Let's get this deal done. So yeah, it's very much about thinking about the long term and helping people where you can, right? If you're working with a CMO who's sort of creating a marketing strategy, what nuggets, for example, can you provide them that's going to help them? Because they're going to remember that. They're going to remember that you went out of your way, right, at some point to help them out do their job better. That they won't forget that. And that's how you cultivate these relationships, which, I've seen people getting hired by their ex-clients. So this client, they got sold to by this person, and then they move on to another company and they're like, I want that salesperson to work for me because they did an incredible job when they sold to me when they were at this particular company, and then they get headhunted. So, all these amazing things can happen from just cultivating that value and those relationships from the very start.
Yeah, that's a great example. I like that. And it's indeed, when you move over to the next job, whether it be you or the other person, the connection stays, right? And I think that's very strong. I think it's really long-term success in it. So I've maybe another question, which I probably see coming through a lot when we speak to sales and marketing people in the field. So
sure.
If you're performing well, right, in your comfort zone. So let's say hypothetically a salesperson that is currently in a business where they both sell projects as well as subscriptions.
Sure.
But that person is performing actually quite well and probably in the comfort zone, right? So why is there actually a need to leave that comfort zone in your view, right? While the market is shifting, but basically the most important thing is how do you actually start, right? So could you share some perspectives on that, on this hypothetical case, as well as maybe share your own experience, how you have always been challenging yourself to get out of your comfort zone?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. I always say that comfort zone is a growth killer, right? You do not want to
nice.
comfort zone. It literally kills growth because comfort zone, you're so comfortable, you're not challenged, you're doing the same thing day in, day out. I'll give you an example. So if we talk, so Bynder is a digital asset management tool, right? So it helps people who work in sort of brand or creative or marketing to sort of manage their whole asset life cycle. Now, if you think about what brands looked like in the 90s, for example, they used to get their message out through TV advertisements or billboards. And then slowly, websites started becoming a part of that, and it was magazines. So it was very simple. Now, a person who was selling something like that in the 90s, if they had stayed in their comfort zone, look how things have developed since the 90s. Now your brand message needs to be on social media. It needs to be on mobile apps. There's so many different touch points that your buyer is going through, digital and human, that if you haven't grown out of that comfort zone, you're a lost case. You're literally not going to survive in this world. So that's why it's important, because things are changing all the time and you need to be learning and you need to be changing with the world. I think for me, again, it's a very sort of personal value, because I want to show the world or myself or my mom, my family, my boys, that I'm capable of doing anything I set my mind to. So if especially for my boys, I think, kids, they watch you doing, they're not going to do as you tell them to, they're going to do as they see you doing things.
Only boys? Or
that if I'm allowing myself and pushing myself to get out of my comfort zone, the growth that's coming from that, right? And that growth could be personal, it could be financial, it could be any sort of growth that's important to you as a person. But it's very interlinked, right? Because if I want different results, I'm going to have to do something different. I cannot be doing the same old thing day in, day out and expect things to change. It's up to me for that to happen, whether that's personally or professionally. So I think that's why it's important to get out of that comfort zone. And I just push myself. I realized that, yes, it might be scary in the beginning. I started doing sort of videos. I'm sure you saw them on LinkedIn. And that was hard, putting myself out there. And even this, it's like, oh my God, I'm recording a podcast with video and people are going to be watching this and listening to this. But hey, I want to push myself and I want to see, yes, I'm going to rock this. I've got this. And then I can see this as an achievement. I can be proud of myself. I can, show my boys, and hopefully it's going to spark something in them that if my mom can do it, I can do it. So yeah, there's sort of lots of ways to think about that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think this definitely will inspire people, right? Great to hear your story around that. So if you look at the, because obviously that transformation, so to say, almost, right? The belief you have, right, and getting into that aspirational identity you admire, that comes obviously with challenges, right? So in like you said, right, in numerous of the roles you fulfill, right, although they are more connected, your personal life, your work life. But what challenges have you faced actually when you started implementing these principles of value exchange, relationship building, and how have you overcome these?
Yeah, so if we look at it from a professional perspective, I think sometimes when you are trying to build relationships with people, not everyone is keen to do that. Because some people, even if they're on the other side of the table where they're trying to buy from you, they just want to know, what does your product do? And do I like it? And if I like it, where do I sign? They don't care who you are and what you're passionate about. And you will come across those people. And I think, again, it's being people-centric, right? So you cannot push your beliefs or your way of working onto other people if they're not on the same page as you. So in the beginning, that was hard because I felt that I was sort of pushing them to tell me more about them and tell me where they went on holiday with their children and how many children they have. And the looks I got from them were like, why is she asking me all these questions? Like, it's a bit weird. Like, why is she asking me personal questions? So I think what I learned was that it's not everyone's cup of tea to to be that sort of open about their personal part. Some people just like to separate those two things, and you have to respect that. I think that was sort of challenge number one. When you are trying to cultivate those relationships, that not everybody's going to have that.
No, exactly. I can imagine that. But maybe on another topic a little bit more, because I can imagine, obviously, right, that building relationships with, like you said, right, with probably with buyers, but also with the internal organization, you need to make choices, right? You can't build up relationships with your totally addressable market, right? Then you would have needed 100 Simrans, right? And I don't think the world is ready for that, right? Not yet.
It would be great if we could clone you, Simran.
Yeah, so that's the topic for now. No. So that means obviously that you probably make very focused choices, right? About the accounts you want to engage with and the people. I think we talk a lot about ICP, right? The ones that fit you like a glove, right? That have, where you really have that DNA fit with. So that comes adopting such an approach, right? That comes probably also with challenges, I could imagine, right? Because if just thinking out loud here, right? But you would probably have a different pipeline in numbers of opportunities than if you go for a let's say wide net approach, right? So could you share maybe some of those challenges also you have overcome, or you will come into when you start adopting these types of approaches?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, as far as ICPs are concerned, I think sometimes companies focus just on the jazzy logos, so to say, right? So they'll think, oh, the logo, wouldn't it be amazing to have this company on our website as a customer because it's other clients. So I think ICP needs to be looked at more than the jazzy logo. Like, is there really a value match? Can you really provide the value that they're looking for? But also, is there a match in sort of the beliefs that you have, right?
Exactly.
Do those people that you're trying to sell to see eye to eye? Are they open to sharing information? Because I cannot sell you my solution if you're not telling me what your problems are. Because some people are closed about those issues. They don't feel comfortable talking about the challenges they're having in their role, because they feel, I'm put in this role for a reason, right? So my boss is paying me good money to do this job. Why am I going to tell you that I'm finding it hard and these are the challenges that I've got? So I think you need to sort of weigh up what is worth your time, who is worth your time, and what are the real opportunities where there's certainly a value match that you can say, oh yes, we can definitely help you overcome these challenges, and this is how we're going to do it. But people have to be open to let you do that. You cannot sell to someone who's not willing to be sold to. That's I think one of the sort of major things. And I think the other thing is, and this is something that I have found doing myself, sort of in all the B2B sales roles that I've been in, I focus more on the quality rather than the quantity in my pipeline. And if my manager's listening to this podcast, he's probably not happy right now. It's true. I rather have 10 opportunities in my pipeline and close 9 of those than have 40 and then still close 9. Because, of course, my attention, my time is then going to be divided over those 30 opportunities, when the real opportunity only lies in those 9 that I'm working on. So I think it's important to select the accounts carefully by matching the value, but also not emotionally getting attached to your pipeline. Because I've done that. I've been there, and I've learned from those mistakes where I'm like, oh, I really hope, fingers crossed, I really hope this deal's going to come through. And, oh, that guy's really nice, or that lady's really nice, and she told me that, oh, don't worry about it, Simran, it'll come through. Don't rely on those. What are the facts? Don't get emotionally attached to your pipeline. And just because it's a jazzy logo, do not fight it until, you cannot anymore. And then your forecast is all over the place. So you just have to be sort of true to yourself as much as be true to your business as well.
Yes, but if you look at metrics from that point of view, maybe in the other case, you close more deals, but the deal size is probably lower.
Yeah, I think it depends. I won't mention the company name, but in one of the companies that I was working for the EMEA region, I was the best salesperson for that particular year. And I also had the least amount of opportunities in my pipeline, but I chose most of them, right? So again, it's about weighing up what is worth your time and what accounts you're going after. And are you then speaking to the right people in those accounts? Because let's be honest, if you're not speaking to power, you're going to have to do double the work, right?
Exactly.
But it's nice
more than double the work.
Right? Exactly. Whether it's ICP or not, it doesn't matter. And the way I look at it is that if I am not speaking to power, the person that I'm speaking to are then going to sell internally, and they're not going to do a good job, because I'm in this position for a reason, because I'm trained on the product I'm selling and the service I'm selling. I've been in sales for a very long time to understand the sales process. And that person who's then going to sell internally, they don't have a clue about what my solution offers them as a business. So they're going to do a poor job of it. So I always aim to be speaking to power. And, it's not always possible, let's be honest. But how do you then empower your champion in that organization to try and sell for you? Or how do you join sort of forces with them and say, hey, let's jump on a meeting with your CMO and let me help you, get this solution in place, because I know it's going to help you massively in your job. So again, those ICP accounts and that cultivating those relationships, it's very, very interconnected, very much so.
Yeah, I like that. I like that much. So maybe another topic. It's more not really a trend anymore. I think it's more evolving. I think we discussed it also, I think earlier today, Liesbeth, in another chat we had. But account-based marketing, right? I think your approach probably suits a lot an account-based approach, right? Smaller set of accounts fits you like a glove, or you have a value exchange. But in your view, because I think account-based marketing has been done his or hers, enters a couple of years ago or so. I think it's now more or less evolving towards account-based engagement or everything or experience, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter, but it's not solely a marketing party anymore with, like you said, jazzy logos coming in from sometimes even selected by a CEO who thinks we need to be on this one. I think this is fancy on my website for the investors. But how do you think that sales and marketing can best start collaborate actually and to drive these types of account engagement in your view? So how could they best start collaborating?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't think it's just sales and marketing. I think product is a massive part of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is, again, something I've learned previously in one of my previous roles, is if product is creating a product and marketing is not sure who that product is aimed at, they're going to create content for a different audience. And then sales is not working with marketing, so they're not really sure who that content is created for. So they're going to go and sell to another audience. So what you have is 3 siloed teams selling to totally different audiences, and the business is going to suffer because there's no alignment whatsoever. So I think it's important for product to be sort of very verbal and communicate to sales and marketing and the wider organization what the product is and what are the updates that are happening, what changes are they proposing in the near future. So marketing can then bear that in mind when creating that content, but sales obviously needs to be a part of that too, right? So marketing needs to understand what the buyers are saying when the salespeople are talking to them. So if I'm a salesperson and I'm talking to a marketing person, I can say, okay, I love this collateral. However, I think it needs to be changed in this shape or form to be able for me to send this out to a certain region I'm working for. Because it's not like, one size fits all approach. That's not going to happen. Especially if you are targeting different regions, different countries. Marketing needs to be able to allow that sort of localization to happen, and localization not just for regions, but also industry.
Exactly.
Although I'm a big believer that industries can learn so much from each other.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think you're the example of that, right? You worked in several industries, and I think we chatted also around this, right? A friend of mine works at a company that has been hiring always for retail, and they flipped that a year ago or so towards we want to have new people in, not coming from retail, right? From all other industries, because they want to have a broader perspective, right?
Totally. And so many opportunities are missed otherwise, right? Because and I saw this massively in one of my earlier sort of jobs that I was in. People would say, oh yeah, we need data, but we only want it from our industry. Okay, I sort of understand why you're saying that, but what you're missing is lots of learnings that other industries where they've messed up and they've learned from it. So how can you learn from their mistakes? It doesn't matter whether they're in your industry or not. So I think it's really important that you sort of go into a bigger pool of data, whether you are in sales or marketing, or whether you are an organization. You need to look at different perspectives and you need to learn from other people's mistakes and not just be sort of like tunnel visioned. I think that's really key. The other key thing is, like any other relationship in life, listening. Listening is key. Marketing needs to listen to sales, and sales needs to listen to marketing and product, and so on. Because when we listen to each other, our client is going to be better off with that, because what we're doing, we're working together to provide this really valuable experience for our prospect, ultimately who then becomes a client and who is going to remain with us throughout this sort of journey that they've gone on of digital transformation or whatever you want to call it. And ultimately, our business is going to benefit from that and it's going to grow. I think that's the aim. And the other aim I think we need to bear in mind is when we work together, product marketing and sales, we want to cultivate relationships with our clients that they don't just stay our clients. They want to shout out Bynder's name from the rooftops that, hey, Bynder is an amazing digital asset management tool and you really need to go and buy it, Mr. Marketeer. That's what the aim is there.
Really good. I like that. That's I think we call that we call it in the Netherlands, right, Lisbeth? We say like you on a birthday you start jumping on a can of beer or whatever, right? And you tell how happy you are around the relationship that you have with this company. And I think what I also heard a lot coming through is indeed building those internal relationships, right? Becoming investing in people, killing those boundaries between marketing, sales, and product, so that they become happy, right? And then it's happy employees who essentially also create happy customers, right? And I think that came across very much in your story, I would say.
Yeah, what we see happening is that, if you have that real internal togetherness, commercial togetherness, but what you said better, if you approach from a whole go-to-market approach, you have product, services, or delivery in it as well, you will succeed better than if you do that in a siloed approach. And it's such a pity that so many companies still have that siloed approach, marketing handing over the MQLs to sales. What you're saying, if you look at how are you engaging with the market, it's totally misaligned, even from a conversational point of view. An example, what we see the conversations we are having, but the question we get in our conversations is that, are you doing business to business or business to consumer? And I'm saying, I think we're doing business to human.
Yeah.
Because, for us, for example, in what we offer, it doesn't matter who the end user is or the buyer is, or, it's not about that. It's you do business with human. And of course, it's different in a business to consumer. You have more emotional buying and you have less in business, of course. But at the end, if you look at what you're saying, building relationships next to digital, connected to really human interactions, because I also believe in that power, the combination.
Yeah.
At the end, it's human. And I think the more human you are in your whole cycle, the better it is, also for the long term.
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, people buy from people. That's a phrase that we've heard so many times, right? But it's true. People buy from people. And at the end of the day, if you are not bringing that human touch, people will feel that you're not being genuine. You're not being yourself. And if you're not being genuine and you're pretending to be something, how long can that last for? You can't fake to be someone you're not. And how does that basically sort of come across from a trust perspective? to your prospects, whether they are, B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter. Like you said, it's human, and that's what we need to focus on.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's really nice, and it's the human, and therefore staying true to yourself, having that human connection, building those relationships, and delivering and exchanging value. Right. I think that's I would say almost the playing the different game. Right. To become or stay relevant. I think we had another term, Liesbeth, that came across. Right? I think instead of relevant. I think you become timeless, right? Is that correct? Yeah.
And I think it's also, when we talk about the human touch, the value and the people-centric comes again to surface, because if we look at sort of the old school way of selling, it was very product-focused. Nowadays, there's so many people offering the same product. Nobody cares if you say, oh, my product is so pretty or it's the best. They don't care about that. What they care about is, how are you going to help them solve this issue that they've got in a human manner, by showing empathy and by showing that, hey, we hear you, you're not the only one here. And by providing facts and figures that not only, provide them data, but actually builds that trust and it sort of focuses on that long-term relationship where they see you as their go-to person. I think that's really become their go-to person.
Exactly. Now, I think this is... I think we couldn't end it better than with this long-term success and a go-to person. So, it was really a cool chat, and thanks a lot for joining us in this conversation, me and Liesbeth, Simran. So,
thank you for having me. And if anybody who's listening, and they, one thing I like to add is that if they are sort of thinking about doing something that's out of their comfort zone, whether that's recording videos on LinkedIn like I did, or posting some personal stuff, take a little step at a time. You don't have to jump mountains in one go. Do something small and just believe in yourself, surround yourself with the right people, and ask for help, because that's what I used to struggle with. I still struggle with that sometimes, because I just want to be self-reliant. I don't want to rely on other people. But sometimes it's good to ask help, because people out there will help you. So
no, that's very nice, Simran. So let's say if some of the listeners think, oh yeah, this is really something of a challenge, or I want to start with cultivating my own personal brand and so on. How can they best reach you? Can they just reach out to you on LinkedIn or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, add me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I would love to help you and just love to share the experiences that I've had so far, but also maybe connect you with other people who've actually helped me as well. So more than happy to do that.
All right, super. So to close it off, I think we had a great chat today. We really became to the forefront how Simran is actually balancing purpose and performance. What we can learn from that as sales and marketeers, truly building that two-way value exchange, and I think the go-to person for the success for the long run. I think that will be the outcome. So if you want to play the different game, I would say definitely follow Simran. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Serving Your Market as Kings or Queens. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll catch you in the next episode.